goodness, it's been forever.
We're back. Hello.
We're back.
Good
I
to
feel
see everybody. We're back. And we got a great show for you today. Episode 16 of the Down Home Texas Small Business Show. And before we get started, though, it's summertime. And some of us have been enjoying the summer. Amanda.
small vacation. It was so necessary. Just a small thing, but I mean, it was nice to get away. And my son graduated. It was just so important.
Oh, yeah, you had a graduate, too. I had a graduate as well.
Yes.
Yes. My granddaughter graduated. So we both experienced that. And then you jetted off to the beach
I
and you
jetted off
looked
to the beach.
tan
I
and
did get a
relaxed
tan.
and
Okay.
happy.
Well, relaxed I am not. Happy I am. Um, there's lots going on, but it is summer and we are here, and I am so grateful to kind of be back on our routine. Like I saw you today and I was like, oh, it's been
I
forever.
know. It feels like it's been forever. And then when we put the show notes up,
Yeah.
Sia, did you see Sia's comment? She came on and said, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're coming back." So I know. I was like, "Oh, I know. It feels like it's been forever." But we had the Memorial Day holiday, and we didn't want to have a show on Memorial Day because we didn't want people to sit at their computers, and I wasn't going to sit at my computer, which I didn't. So it's just one of those things. But it's good to be back and be in a regular routine and back at work and doing some things. And I needed to get back at work, obviously.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So let's get going. Let's roll the intro and let's bring our guest on because we're really excited about today's topic. All right?
Let's go.
All right. Let's go. All right. So here we
Yay.
are. This is the Down Home Texas Small Business Show, episode 16. And today we're going to talk all about human resources.
Yes.
Human
Yes.
resources.
And what that means and why it's important and what it doesn't mean.
What it means and what it doesn't mean, and all that good stuff. And so our guest today is a friend of mine that I met here locally, a wizard and an expert in the HR world that I can't wait to hear from and for her to tell you all about herself. So here comes Miss Holly Darby.
Hello.
Yay! One day we'll have sound effects, but until we do.
Okay.
I mean, I
Just
like being the real clapping.
It adds to it, so.
Yeah, we like it. We like it. All right. So welcome. We're really excited that you're here today.
Thank you.
You were the first person when Amanda said, let's do an HR episode. Who can we get? I immediately thought Holly is the person that we need to get on here. So
Well, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful. That makes me feel good. I love having this conversation, and I just wish we could have it more often, honestly. I think when you sent me the topic for today, I think it's a really good topic. So many times people don't realize what HR is and isn't. And so I am all for this topic.
yes. Yes, that is exactly true. So let's start by having you introduce yourself.
Okay.
And tell us and everyone else watching about you and how you got into the HR world and all that good stuff. I mean,
Okay.
I don't even know how how does one get into it? Surely when you were a young girl, you didn't dream of being in HR,
No,
but
no,
maybe you did.
no. Growing up with a mom that was HR, I saw everything I didn't want, and I thought, "Oh, if that's HR, I don't want it." Um, my dream was I'm going to be an author. So I've written a couple of books, not published any yet. So I'm working on the one I'm trying to publish. But that was always my childhood dream, is not HR. But my name is Holly Darby. I recently moved to Brownwood to be closer to family and to be closer, a little more central to some of my clients. I felt like I was, I have them on each end of the state. And so this kind of helps me getting a little bit closer to some of my clients. And I really enjoy living in a smaller town. It's just been really good for me personally, and giving me a little bit of a more of an opportunity to concentrate on what my clients are needing. But I've been in HR about 25 years, and I have my associates and my bachelor's are both in management. I had started originally going for psychology, but then I realized that's not really where I wanted to be. And so, with the help of my counselor, we agreed on management, because it is, I think people call it HR management now in colleges, but way back when I went, it was just management. And so I took a lot more business law classes, and that really kind of helped spur my interest on the legal side of HR. And so that's where I've spent the majority of my career. Seems like a lot of the companies that have hired me have asked me to come in and clean up or to start their HR. And finally, when I was getting pretty close to retirement, I decided I still had a lot more to give. And that's where I decided to start my own company, and getting to do the things that I like to do, and helping the people get kind of set up and ready to go with what they're needing out of HR. And but I always tell people when they ask me how I got in HR, I usually say kicking and screaming is usually what I say. But I've embraced it and I love it. And you know, hearing what some of the people that I have been in touch with in my positions, that kind of helps drive me in knowing I've chose the right path. So it makes me really thankful.
Good, good.
Hmm.
So, tell us, because I think a lot of people don't really understand exactly what HR is. So,
Okay. Usually, if people ask me what I do for a living, I tell them I'm a janitor. That's all I do is clean up. Because most people, most managers, most business owners, most technical supervisors, they're doing the job that they need to be doing. And they think they know enough about the HR that it's like, it's an afterthought. And so many times that's what I end up in, is helping them understand where HR can come in. So, sorry. And so originally, I started in writing policies and procedures for companies. I love efficiency. I love making sure a job gets done in the short amount of time, fewest hands touching as possible. One of the positions I worked on was many years ago, when the company I was working for was trying to get their ISO certification. So writing policies, procedures, writing out the desk schematics, I was in hog heaven with that. And so as my career progressed in that area, it seemed like HR started adopting those positions with policies and procedures and logistics. And so that was kind of my first dip in the water with HR. And that was while I was in college. And so that's kind of how it started. And then it just kept growing and kept growing. And I finally embraced it, that, I like this. This is where I should be. And so 25 years later, here I am.
okay.
I'm a policies and procedures girly. I can talk that almost all day. However, that is not the funnest use of our time today. And it doesn't get us into the juicy, nitty gritty details that we want.
Hmm.
But I do have questions. You said that you are on the legal aspect of HR. Do you mind? Okay, so that means that's one facet of HR. What are some of the others, and what are the differences in those?
Oh, good question. Because it is different. A lot of the smaller companies, it's one hat, person wears one hat, or many hats, excuse me, one person wears many hats. When you get into the larger companies, HR is divided. You usually have, of course, pay. That's kind of, its own little section. Training and development is usually a section. Uh, the the hiring part, recruiting, is a separate section. And usually under legal comes the policies, the procedures, the disciplinary, the terminations, contracts, employment agreements, those types of things. And then you always have an HR generalist usually. And benefits is another section, because you can get specialty certifications in each one of those areas through different governing agencies.
Okay, so what draws you to the legal aspect of it?
Being an introvert.
I feel
No,
that.
employee relations is a huge piece of HR that seems to be becoming more and more prevalent in the profession as well. And that's employee engagement, the surveys, I know there's a lot of bitterness when we talk about pizza parties, but there's a purpose for all of that, about behind it. Most people are always saying, just give me the money. I don't want the pizza, but there's always a purpose behind those. So employee engagement is another thing. Those are usually the ones that are more extroverted, that know how to play the games, that know how to, keep people engaged and entertained. I can do that, but the policy and legal side's more the black and white, the areas where I can really get my teeth sunk into those. And so I always tease that I keep saying I'm an introvert, but really I think I'm more of an ambivert. I'm an introvert, but I know how to be an extrovert when I need to be. But employee relations is probably another area that to me is not my favorite, but it's a necessity in any company, in my opinion.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so another question. Sorry, I love HR. I am not an HR girly. However, I know how important it is. If there was something that you just feel like you scream it from the rooftops and people don't hear you when it comes to HR, what is it?
We're not the fun police, you know.
Ooh.
We're not out there just looking to have something to gripe about or to call you out on. That's probably my biggest thing. And in my past career, um, one of the things that I've always taken pride in is when people have come to me with an issue, and it could be an employee with an issue with the manager, or a manager issue with the worker, co-workers with each other. 90% of the time, it was not for me to be involved. I took my role very seriously of helping prepare them to have a conversation with that person. And so it wasn't that we were trying to call somebody out or to get them in trouble. It's us trying to equip people to have conversations. And that's the biggest part of my role that I see, is making sure people are communicating. And that's where my deep desire for them to understand what HR is and should be, is just helping people relate to each other.
Ooh, what HR
Okay.
should be.
So in that vein, do you say, or do you feel like HR is always on the side of the employer, or always on the side of the employee?
Um,
Or
I can only speak to me personally, as my HR career and the people that I have mentored in the career. No,
uh-huh.
we're not always on the side of the employer. What I say is, we are should be the objective outsiders. We need to take everything into account. We need to make sure we're protecting the company because that's who pays us. That's who writes the policies. That's who insures us. That's who, drives the whole thing. Without them, we wouldn't have a paycheck. So yes, there is a huge aspect of having the company's betterment in mind. But if we have happy, healthy, stable employees, it's a win-win. And so we have to draw that fine line of seeing both sides, making sure the company is secure, but also making sure our employees know what the right thing is, or if they are doing the right thing, what's the company not doing? And that's we're supposed to be that middle ground, is making sure we're seeing both sides of the coin and keeping both sides in sight.
So kind of playing Switzerland.
Exactly. I've always had a Switzerland flag in my office for that very reason. We are the objective outsiders, and that's the role that I have always done my best to play. And in my career, I have gone to the CEO or the owner and let them know this is not right. And, when you educate them and help them understand or show them the law, they're like, oh, we didn't know, and they immediately, change directions. Or if an employee comes in griping about, my boss is making me do this. Okay, well, let me help you understand why. And that's usually the middle part, is the managers are doing what they're told and they're telling employees what to do, but the why is missing. And people want to know how they fit in the why behind we're being asked to do what we're doing. It's not sucking the fun out of everything. It's making sure the job gets done.
Yeah, right.
That communication piece.
Is that answering your question?
It does. It answers a lot of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure because your face, I was like, oh, did I hit a wrong note there?
No.
It does. Okay. So how does this apply to our small business people? Because I've come into situations where, and I'm sure you have too, where a small business owner will say, oh, well, HR policies don't really apply to me because I don't have employees, or I only have two or three employees. So I don't have to play by those rules. Mm-hmm. What do you say to that?
If it's an owner saying that, man, I have a declaration that I could read to them.
Oh, hold on. We need to hear a declaration.
We need to hear a declaration because I know what I say, but what does the HR expert say to that?
My main thing is when people think that, it's because they might have Googled a law, let me say FMLA, for example, right. And they see 50 employees, you got to do X. Well, I don't have 50 employees, so I don't have to do X. That does not negate the necessity of you knowing what that law requires, because some piece of it might actually help you. You might not call your medical leave FMLA, but it has a whole structure that you could be using to make sure people aren't just abusing the system. For owners saying that they don't want the policies or they don't think they need it because we only have two people, I always ask them, oh, so you have a lot of time on your hands. That's awesome. I wish I had that much time on my hands. And they're like, wait, I don't have time. Oh, well, if you had policies and procedures in place, you wouldn't have to keep explaining the same thing over and over and over again. And that's kind of when you can see that little bit of shift. The other part of that is training. It is also liability coverage. A lot of general liability insurances for companies require policies to help protect the company from lawsuits or injuries. And you don't have to have the Gettysburg Address type of policy manual. You don't need the wherefore out thous in your policy manual. Your policy manual could be 20 pages, but at least you have some guidance and guidelines that everybody's behavior and conduct of what you will or will not accept from your employees is written. And people want to know where that bar of expectation is. And having that in writing helps them reach that bar. But if you don't put a bar there, they're going to make it up on their own.
Oh yeah, and that bar is different for
Very
every
true.
person.
Absolutely.
Very, very true. Yeah, very, very true. And you might only have 2 employees today, but will you always just have 2 employees?
Hmm.
Or will someday you may have 10?
Right.
And do you
Good
want to
point.
wait until that day to put all this in place?
Yep. It's a very good
Right?
point. Very good point. Yes, absolutely.
Too
You
late.
know, they always say you dress for the job you want, not the one you have. And I
Mhm.
think that is
Yeah.
exactly what you just
Right.
said is,
Right.
you know, so you're going to stay this size forever. And I
Mhm.
think that's a very good point.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think there's something in all of this, and the policies and the procedures and the laws and all of the functions for every business, no matter how small they may be.
Hmm.
There's something in here for them
Hmm. And a lot of
to
times,
take
what I'm
from.
seeing in smaller companies is whoever's writing the paychecks gets stuck with the HR.
Mhm.
And it's like,
Yeah,
oh, that's what 99.9% of people see in HR is, oh, they're the ones that pay us. Well, there's a lot more to it. You know, if it was just
yeah,
pay, that would be a finance responsibility. But there's a
yeah.
lot more to it. And so usually, and in fact, I know one of my clients specifically, their payroll person is not HR, but they're
Uh-huh.
small enough that that's the person doing it. And I get a lot of phone calls from her going, what do I do on this? And so that's where, you know, my company has come into play is that way you're not having to employ a full-time HR expert, but you
Hmm.
can call and
Hmm.
ask questions when you need to. And so
Yeah,
she calls me ever so often with some questions. And so some of them tickle me because I'm thinking, wow, I thought we were like way past all that. And then
mhm.
other times it's like, wow, that's a really good question. Let me get back to you on that. So, but it's interesting to see how smaller companies do try to, and being smaller, there's nothing wrong with not having necessarily a dedicated HR person because you're surviving, you're growing, you know, we're all doing multiple jobs, and that's a necessity sometimes, but we still need to make sure we have the bone structure for later.
Right, right.
Okay, so I have a question in this day and age, we would be remiss if we didn't ask, where is AI coming into play with HR? So we hear about ATS systems knocking out applicants and this and that and the other. So where is AI in helping in the HR industry?
I might not be the right person on that one, maybe
Oh,
because I am a huge believer in human resources. And one of the a few jobs ago, I worked for a pretty large company. They had 4 companies. They were multi-state, and they were sold a ATS system, applicant tracking system. And applicant tracking systems have some good uses. I'm not opposed to those, but I'm still one of those. I still want to see people. I still
mhm.
believe I know more about what this company needs on their descriptions. So, with that said, and I know that sounds conceited, but I'm old school HR. I still like to be a part of it. Where ATS, I feel like could be helpful, and where I have personally had experience with the ATS, which is AI, and it was AI before AI was cool. HR had these ATS systems, and they had the up and coming payroll systems for time clocks. So HR has had AI longer than most departments have.
Mhm.
The thing that keeps turning us and giving us hiccups is, you know, that old computer saying garbage in, garbage out. Okay, that's what happens when you don't have a person knowing exactly what you're wanting out of the applicant tracking system, or knowing that one size doesn't fit all of my departments.
Mhm.
That's where you get into the ATS hiccups. And I have seen that time and time and time again because they might not have even told HR they purchased this finance package. I'm not picking on the finance, but a lot of times it's part of payroll ends up in the finance package, and oh, we have this applicant tracking system. And so finance sets it up. Well, then HR is told, okay, here, deal with it. That's where a lot of HR people are really truly banging their heads. And that is where it is kicking out qualified people. I applied for my job just to show my CEO at the time. I applied for my job and it didn't consider me. I had 3 degrees. I have 4 designations. At that point, I had 18, 19 years of experience, and it didn't pass me through. And that's where I finally showed him that this is broke. It's these people setting it up were not the correct people to set it up. And so it took a lot of work to try to turn that. But that's one of my probably soapbox moments, is because for some reason companies are still not partnering with HR to set these systems up appropriately. And so HR is trying their best to deal with what they have. The other thing where I see a lot of hiccups on ATS systems are managers not being trained appropriately of how to use them. And sometimes they kick stuff out unnecessarily. And so I think it has a lot to do, going back to my communication and training on those. As far as AI, I've not been in a company since the whole AI, the ChatGPT, and so I'm not 100% on that. One of my clients had an issue with one of the people they were hiring turned in a presentation that they felt like was a ChatGPT, and they didn't say don't use it. They utilized the tools that they had available to them, and so they really couldn't say anything about it.
Interesting. So we are on the fence, on the side of the fence that says AI is not replacing HR. That's safe to say?
I hope not. It's easy for people to say that when they don't know what all HR does. People say that, exporting payroll, then we would never need another HR person handling payroll. But that's not really accurate, because you still have to have somebody knowing what people, are the timesheets being entered? Is the PTO being accounted for? You still have to have a person on the ground knowing the policies and procedures of the company to know that that is done. And that was a form of AI. And, I had a longtime payroll lady that really fought that tooth and nail, because she really felt like it was going to take her job away. And after, a couple of years, she came to me. She's like, man, I should have never worried. They were not going to get rid of me because they don't know how to run this system. And so, she finally embraced it, but it took her a while. So I can't see that. But again, I'm an old school HR person, and I know what value HR brings to a company. And so I just don't see that happening. And that's my personal opinion.
I mean, it is called human resources. It's not called AI resources.
Yeah. But it's the conversation we have to have. I mean, how many times have we had it about the accounting industry? It's going to replace us. No, it's not.
I don't think so. There's too many moving parts and pieces.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same with HR. So I just wanted to hear from an expert.
Probably so.
Well, and the fact is, yes, AI can be a good tool. Mm-hmm. But I'll answer this as an HR person. I feel the same way about some of these pre-employment tests too. Mm-hmm. It's a tool to help you make a decision. Mm-hmm. I feel like sometimes we forget that we still have a job to do. We still have a brain. We still need to make these decisions. And you can't train AI on, again, I'm not a computer expert. I'm not an AI expert. But the intricacies of human nature, knowing what accounts for being late, what accounts for bad behavior, that still has to have a human judgment on it.
That's the key, where you just said the word judgment. Mm-hmm. That's the key, because these situations that that HR has placed on their desk are not black and white.
Mm-mm.
You're playing in the gray areas every day, and I don't think AI has the ability at this point, at least, to play in the gray.
Well, and I accept what you just said fully, because so policies and procedures are one thing, but
Right.
90% of my work was juggling people's personalities, of
Yes.
making sure these two personalities could have a productive conversation.
Mhm.
That takes a person to know people and help them have a conversation. And
Exactly.
that was a juggling constantly, Now I will say where the help of different types of AI, like applicant tracking systems, is what if your company doesn't have a full-time recruiter? It could help me when I'm juggling every hat in HR as a one person department.
Mhm.
It could help me streamline some of my more admin tasks,
Mhm.
but I have to make sure it's set up correctly. And I also have to
Right.
understand each department might have different needs on the applicant tracking system. It's not a one size fits all. But again, it's me making those decisions to how can I better use AI to make my job easier. I think that's where the conversation should be.
Yeah, I agree.
I completely
that.
agree. So we got a question asking if we think AI is going to replace accounting in the next 5 years. I will just echo everything that Holly just said. AI is a tool that we use. AI is not going to replace us. I do not think in any capacity will it completely replace us. Will it help with some of the menial and other tasks that we do? Yes, it will, in the same way that it helps HR. But no, I wouldn't continue in a career path that I thought was going to be non-existent in 5 years.
Because quite honestly, if you look back, look way back, way back. Let's even think of when Ford first brought in the assembly line.
Yes.
Right.
And then robots were brought in. We still have people on the assembly line. Yes, we have robots doing some of the work, or we have more automated welding robots that help the human to do that function. So yes, as technology expands, yes, it might streamline our processes. I know the ratio for HR used to be, and I'm going to misspeak on this. I want to say it used to be 1 to every 50, and this was back like in the 80s.
Wow.
Because you didn't have so many automated parts. Now it's like 1 to 75, and that was probably early 2000s. I don't know what the current ratio is, but I'm sure with some of this AI technology, the ratio could be a little bit different. But that's with any technology. I mean, think about when you used to do paper timesheets and that lady sitting there with the 10 key. And so I think that's where AI is. It's a new technology. It's scary, especially for those of us that have been doing the jobs, but it's not going to take our jobs. It's going to streamline our processes.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay, so
Agreed.
we've talked a lot about what comes across as the negative stereotypes of or connotations that come with HR.
Mhm.
But really, we want the takeaway to be something positive from this. In that, how does HR help us? How does it help our employees? What is the true function of HR supposed to be? And so you've hit on a couple of those several times, but can we dig into some of that? And we'll let you choose which ones you want to dig into, because of course we want to hear what you're passionate about, but what is it that is good and makes HR worthwhile?
I think it really depends on the person. Some people, they might have been in finance running payroll and now they're stuck doing HR, and they're on the more admin side of HR. They're just trying to survive. They don't truly embrace the full HR. In those times, and I've seen this a couple of times, So that person, when disciplinary action comes into play, they might not have the training, or they might not have the knowledge or the policy understanding. And so they'll go talk to somebody else about it. That's where I feel like a lot of times HR does get a negative connotation, is and I've seen some on LinkedIn, even some comments about, HR is not your friend. I'm seeing that a lot right now. And if HR is done right, it's nobody's friends. It's not the company's, and it's not the person's friend. We're running, in the middle. We're trying to be the objective outsiders. Doesn't happen all the time. The other thing is, I think sometimes when somebody does come to HR with a problem, they're expecting 100% confidentiality. And HR needs to do a better job of making sure they understand legally, I cannot hold this confidential, or per policy, I have to bring in your manager.
Mm-hmm.
Letting those people know. And I think that's where we're dropping the ball on some of these situations, to make employees feel like they don't have an ear, they don't have a confidant, is because HR is not fully explaining that to them. HR should be there for everybody's best interest. Now, that does not mean we're always going to give you the answer you like. Sometimes we got to be the hard conversations. We've got to be the ones saying, you know what, I understand what you're saying, but legally I cannot do that, and having those tough conversations. So many times those do get pushed to the side, be it HR or managers. We hate to say no. But one of the best books I read about that was that Brene Brown, Dare to Lead. To be clear is to be kind. And I feel like that's what HR's tagline should be on anything, is making sure people understand, managers, companies, and employees understand the right thing, in the integrity part of it.
Ooh, I love that. To be clear is to be kind. I love that.
Yeah. Okay. I like that too. So, so if you are, let's say that you have the position in a small business, if you are the person in a small business working as the HR, and you're the one wearing all the hats, what advice do you have for that person?
Pray a lot.
Who?
Yeah.
No, I have been a department of one, and I know how hard that is. I know the struggle. I completely 100% understand it. One of the biggest things that really helped me, especially early in my career and being a department of one, is making sure I found support where I needed it. And, the local HR groups, they usually meet for lunch. Just so you're not alone is a huge part. Plus you get additional education during that time. But where I see a lot of people stumbling sometimes is, I think it was in your email that you sent me where you said anybody can do HR.
Oh, yeah.
Understanding your own limitations. And I'll give you an example of that. I had a lady that when I came in, they were already in HR. And so I had set standards of, this is what I expect kind of thing. And this is what the company says in the policies. And after about 3 days, she came to me. She says, I don't enjoy this. This is not where my heart's desire is. I don't want to be this person, And she really, truly felt like she was in the wrong profession. And so knowing your own boundaries is a huge piece of that, because I think sometimes we think HR is easy and anybody can do it. And then we get in there and we realize, oops, but then not realizing we need to get out too. And I think knowing your boundaries, knowing that I could speak a lot about knowing your own boundaries and knowing yourself, but really and truly, it all comes down to the leader. You could have the best HR department on the planet. You could have the most knowledgeable people of HR on the planet. But if you don't have buy-in from your owner and your managers, it's futile. It's not going to work no matter how hard you try. And so making sure you develop that relationship with your owner, if a small business, with the owner or the managing partner, whoever that might be, and making sure they understand the full breadth of what HR is supposed to do, I think is highly necessary. And when I was the department of one, I seemed to be butting heads quite a bit with my manager. This was early in my career. And I finally found some educational material about what HR is and what HR isn't. And I copied them and I put them in his chair because I thought, I don't know how else to have this conversation. I don't even know how to start this conversation. And I'll never forget, he actually read them and he came to me. He's like, I had no clue. And so we really sat down and made a strategic plan of what he wanted, what his vision for the company, because it was his company. 100% should have been driven by him. But he helped me understand where he was coming from, which made my job easier to make sure we got it done. And so I think the leader of the group, of the organization, is key. And that relationship is key.
Yeah. I've been in that situation before. And so I will say, yes, you are absolutely correct that it starts at the top. And
It
so
does.
they have to be on board.
Yeah.
And be willing to do things the right way.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds eerily similar to accounting, Tammy.
I can tell
It kind
you,
of does.
I feel your pain on that because I facilitated some conversations between a CFO and a CEO because of expense reimbursement forms not being done. And the CFO is like, this is the policy. And I'm like, okay, let's, calm it down. But yes, you're 100% right. If the leader doesn't believe in the policies or procedures, no matter what department you're in, it's going to be a problem.
That's right. So, if a small company has a one-man department and they're going to outsource part of their HR stuff, HR tasks or whatever, what does that look like? Because that is what you do. You handle HR outsourcing for people. So tell us what that looks like in your world. If anybody's interested, they'll have an idea.
Right. What I do mostly is most of my clients have an HR person, and it might be a one-man show because it's small to medium-sized companies is the ones I usually work with right now. Now, some of my training events I do for larger organizations, but my contract, I bill by the hour. And sometimes they might not have as much experience in a situation. So they'll call and ask me to help them out. For example, one of my clients had a pretty tough termination, and it was gonna get ugly, And so they asked me to help them step by step, making sure documentation was in place. I wrote the termination agreement. And so I just made sure everything was papered correctly.
Okay.
I've also helped people review their policies and rewrite those. And I usually build those by a project. Other ones, usually if it's, here lately, I've gotten a lot of FMLA and workers' comp questions. People are scared to fire people on FMLA or workers' comp. Well, there's ways to do that. And so I kind of help them through that process. I also help individuals, not just companies. Had an individual going through a tough situation at work. Well, I have a few personal clients, individuals, not companies, going through a tough situation at work, and they're wanting, somebody else to kind of help them. Most of those, I'm just helping them with the conversation they need to have about, it might be a disciplinary action or something. And so I have both types of clients calling me. And so I usually bill by the hour, depending, I call that on call if they just have a quick question. And I bill, if I talk to you for 15 minutes, I bill you for 15 minutes. And then, but most of the time it's reviewing policies. How does it fit into their plot and rewriting job descriptions and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, that's neat. I could see how that could be really helpful
Yes.
Yeah.
for a small business.
And
Do
a lot
you
of times
help?
if they have HR and they call me, the HR person's the one that calling me.
Right.
And I have a couple that don't have on-site HR. They might have somebody running payroll.
Mhm.
I've done a lot more of helping them with hiring. Recruiting's not my favorite, but I've helped them
Okay.
with that process, setting
Right.
it up, making sure they know what they can ask, what they can't ask. So I work with the owner a lot of times in those situations.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask about that because you said you help write job descriptions.
Mhm.
And I was going to ask if you help the hiring process.
I
Help them,
help more of
help
the
them with
process.
interviewing.
Yeah. Yeah. I help the
Yeah.
interviewing, the process, not really going and finding candidates. Now, if I still have a lot of people that call me and ask me if I know of jobs, so I do try to connect people within my network. And that's probably as much recruiting as I do. But I know a lot of recruiters. So if anybody needs it, I know how to get people connected. But I help them with the interviews, with, the questions they can and can't ask. Some clients
Yeah.
want pre-employment testing. So I help them to make sure it's EEOC certified.
Okay.
And so I do help on both sides, not just the disciplinary terminations. I do help
Yeah. Yeah.
people. So
Okay. No. Well, that's good though. But that's because there's more. There's so much more to HR than just discipline
mhm.
and just and terminations. That's what people. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I think when
Mhm.
people think HR, they think, "Oh, I'm in
Well,
trouble," or "Oh,
yeah,
I'm going to get fired." But
100%.
there's a lot more to this.
And that's where, on my outsourcing, I say it's more on the legal side just to differentiate because there's so many awesome insurance brokers that I would never even want to touch what they do, because it's
Right.
like that is a world in itself. There's payroll outsourcing that you can do too. I, so those are types. Now, if you ask me to help you go through and see what payroll person, or if you need a broker, I know people, but I try to stay away from those. So that's why I usually say I'm more on the legal side,
Uh-huh.
just to kind of differentiate that on outsourcing,
Okay.
I don't do payer benefits.
Right. Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Very interesting. So, do you have any funny stories that you can tell us,
Or juicy stories. They don't just
or
have to be
juicy
funny.
stuff? I
We
mean,
we want to
you
hear
can
the good
change
stuff.
names.
I have quite a bit. I told you earlier I was trying to write a book.
Yeah.
Early in my career, I might not should tell this one, but it was very
But we're
early.
gonna do the
It'll
And
be anonymous. We won't tell anybody.
HR manager had told me, of course, I'm still in college, still new to the whole thing. He said, I need you to go check the mechanical room. And he told me the room number. And I knew the layouts because we had maps and he said, I need you to go check the mechanical room at 3:00 today. And he told me the room number. I'm not a mechanical engineer. I don't know how I can help you with that. But he said, just go check. And he was very serious. Okay. So I go find it. And apparently, there had been rumors that employees were having some romance in this mechanical room,
at
and
3 o'clock.
they hadn't caught these people yet. And so I was to go, and of course, I didn't know this until I opened the door
Oh
and I
no.
see what I see, and I'm thinking, uh, and of course, my mother trained me, poker face, you just fake it till you make it kind of thing. And so I kept my composure and I said, we'd like to see you down in HR immediately. And I shut the door and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm thinking, I'm freaking out. I mean, I'm there. I wanted to die at that point.
Oh my
So of course,
gosh.
I go back to my desk or I go back to my boss's office. And I said, you'll have 2 visitors here in a minute. He said, finally, we got them. And I'm thinking, why me? And it was because I was so low on the totem pole, people would not be intimidated by seeing me coming down the hall. And so that was one of my stories. And then
Oh my
I
gosh.
worked for a while, and it had gotten to the point, and this is where HR needs to be careful with setting. Um, uh, don't get in a habit because we always think of documentation, so we should always carry a tablet with us. Well, I didn't realize the habit I had was I had a termination folder. It was a pad folio. It was black, and it had a tablet and a pen already in it, and it had benefit information, so I could hand stuff immediately to this person or phone numbers they were going to need when we got done with the termination. So I always had it ready at the go, and so it was my go bag. So I would pick it up, and people started realizing if I was carrying that tablet, somebody was about to get fired. And so
Oh, no.
I had to really, you have to be aware. Or I've always been the type, I believe in servant leadership. So if we did have to terminate somebody, I was always the one helping clean the office to make sure they weren't alone, to make sure that they felt secure, that they were not being treated like criminals. Now, unless they were, that was a whole nother story. And so if anybody, it got to the point where when people would see me carrying a box, they would look around seeing who did I fire. So even to go get my office supplies, if it was in a box, I wouldn't carry the box to go get my, so there's, you just got to be aware of your being, because people watch HR more than they think they do. And if HR is a nervous wreck or a messy person in their office, that's not giving you the confidence that people will need, the calm leadership. And so, but yeah, I have several stories. Sorry, I kind of got off topic on that.
No, we love it.
No. That's no. We anyway. We
I
like
also
good
had my
stories.
tire slash, so there's an ugly side to HR too. So.
Wait, you've gotten your tire
You
slashed?
got your tire slashed?
Yeah, it was a very ugly situation, and usually I do have the ability of calming that all down, but yeah, I had my tire slashed. I mean, it could get ugly if you're not careful and if you don't handle people. I mean, it's people's livelihoods, so you've got to take it seriously. You've got to show respect. But I think the only reason why they did my car is they couldn't find the manager's car, so I didn't take it too
Yeah,
much.
but still.
So,
Oh, that's not good. Okay, well, tell everybody. I posted your LinkedIn profile
okay.
here in the comments section, but tell people, is that the best way to find you?
That or my email is hollydarby@hollydarby.com. Happy to
Okay.
help. I am trying to develop more local, Texas clients, and I do work remote quite a bit, but I don't mind traveling. It seems like here lately I've been on a lot of public speaking training, and so I've done quite a bit of that for different associations. I was in Abilene a few weeks ago for the young professionals, and then the Community Foundation of Abilene had me in. And then my clients, a lot of times I do help train managers, because that's the biggest thing is, even if you're a great HR person, and I've been in these shoes, what I'm about to say, you get so busy doing your day-to-day job of surviving that things fall to the back burner. And, you might not get to update policy like you want. You might not get to train managers like you want. Or I haven't even looked at a job description in, 2 years. That's kind of where I have tried my best, knowing what I, as an HR person, would have loved to have during my career. And that's kind of how I set up my company, is to be that extra set of hands that people might need. And also understanding of when to outsource. It doesn't mean that you don't know the stuff, or that you're a failure, or that somebody's smarter than you. It's you're utilizing resources. And that's what I want to be for people. I want for small companies, medium size, whatever, I want to be that resource to them, because when we're trying to survive our day to day, we might not get to stop and get organized. And that's kind of how I've structured my company.
Right. That's it. Right on. So if you need, help with outsourced HR, if you need somebody to speak to your organization, here in Central Texas or online.
Mhm.
If you want to do it virtually, or if you need help with some training, anything like that, you can reach out to Holly. Hit her up on the email or reach out to her through her LinkedIn page, or you can contact Amanda or I if you,
Yeah, most
for some
definitely.
reason, if you can't remember, you can reach out to us and we'll get you connected, because
Absolutely.
Holly is the woman. And then if it's not HR, if you just need scuba diving lessons,
Oh my
if you need
goodness.
somebody to fly your private plane, she also can do that. So she's
I only fly small planes. I'm
So
a
not big planes,
only
just small ones.
just
I
little
am.
ones.
I'm an assistant scuba instructor, and I am a private pilot too. Those are my hobbies, and they keep me pretty busy.
Yes.
So I do it
And
too.
she's
So
hopping around the Caribbean,
I'm
scuba
telling
diving
you,
I check all the
everywhere.
islands off as I can. Yes, yeah,
So,
she's
guys,
a
I
woman of many
mean,
talents.
definitely. So I appreciate y'all's time. And is there anything about HR I didn't answer?
I think that we've covered a lot of topics here, and
Okay.
I'm really happy with how this has turned out.
Okay, good.
yeah.
So,
Awesome.
very, very good. So,
Okay. Well, I appreciate
all
y'all's
right.
time, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you
very,
so much.
very,
We're so excited.
very
No,
good.
no
Very
fake
good.
clapping. Real
I
clapping
know.
only.
I know.
Holly,
Yep.
it was so informative and so it just flowed so well. The cadence of it, it was a great time chatting with you, and we are
Yeah.
so thankful that you took your time out of your day to come on
No.
with us.
I appreciate
Yeah,
y'all waiting
thank
till I
you.
got back. So thank y'all.
Yeah, very, very good. So, yes, so in the future, if the subject comes up again, we will reach out to you and give you a holler.
Please do.
And
Please do. I'd love to.
you know, we may have one day we may have a whole round table, small business, each
Oh.
department thing going
That
on.
would be very interesting.
Maybe we
'Cause
would
a couple
have,
of my clients might need help too on y'all's side of the
yeah,
house. So
okay. So we might do that. Might be an interesting show to
definitely.
have, like, somebody from each department of running a business come on as a round table, and I don't know.
That would be
I don't know
good.
what that would look like, but we might do something like that someday. So
Okay.
we'll see.
Awesome.
So in the meantime, we're going to get ready to sign off, I guess, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. So that's going to be
24th.
the 24th. Yeah, June the 24th. Not sure exactly what the subject's going to be just yet, but
We'll
it'll
see
be
what
a good
comes
one.
up.
We'll see what comes up. Guaranteed to be a good one.
Okay.
So-
So y'all have a great day.
You too.
Yep.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly. So, I just adore her. She's so good.
That was so fantastic.
I know,
Guys,
I
thank
know.
you for sticking it out with us.
Yeah, thank
HR gets a bad rap, and we are acutely aware of that. And so we just wanted to take the time to let people know why it's important, how it matters in their company or the companies that they are employed with. Even for employees,
Yeah.
you should know what to expect from your HR.
You should know what to expect, and it really matters to everybody in some way, shape, or form, right? So, yeah, it's a good subject. It's a deep subject.
So much to
it's
cover.
a deep subject. That's what my dad used to say. So
I mean, it goes with her scuba diving. It's fine. It's
it goes
a
with
deep
her scuba
subject.
diving. It's a deep subject. So, okay. All right. We'll be back on June 24th. We'll bring y'all a really interesting subject then. In the meantime, stay cool here in Texas. Stay cool. Stay inside in the air conditioning. Or hit your local swimming hole, I
Yeah,
guess.
for real.
For real. All right. All right. We're going to sign off. We'll see you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.